this regular council meeting of the Village of Grand Marais to order at 7:32 p.m. With us for prayer tonight is Pastor Ruth.
Let's pray. Lord, we thank you today for, first of all, this beautiful island that we live on, and all the ways in which you have provided for us. And Lord, I just even think of this whole issue with the plane and how all of that has begun to work out. And so we pray that even for other things, as we see what's happening there in the Scotiabank and over this island, I think of the newsletter that went out and how powerful that was in getting information out to people. And we pray for Bonnie and the team here, and we pray that you just give them wisdom. We pray also for the RCMP, and I think of Emma here, who's going to do a presentation for the seniors, and we're blessed. And so we thank you, we praise you, and we exalt you, for it's in your name we pray.
My opening remarks are going to be relatively brief tonight. I think really what I wanted to highlight was the announcement that happened last week that I think everybody saw with the reestablishment of air medevac service. The temporary will have part-time starting next month and then full-time based here beginning in September. It has certainly been a long year plus waiting to have some sort of resolution to this. I know I've not been the most patient person through this process. I think we've all had our moments where we've lost our temper and our patience and other things. But I do want to say a thank you to the Department of Health and A&B who have seen this through, and while they told us from the beginning that that was their commitment, it is good to see that it is actually, we have something in writing and timelines to go with. So I think that this is a good news story for the island, and hopefully we will make it to September relatively low-key and quiet. And hopefully I didn't just jinx us all for that. So with that, I will ask for any disclosure of conflict of interest for the agenda. Hearing none. The next item is the adoption of minutes. We have the regular council meeting from December 4th, our special meeting of December 19th. We had a special meeting in January instead of a regular meeting, and that was on January 12th, and a special meeting on January 30th. And those were all circulated as part of the package.
I will make a motion to go with those.
You heard the motion from Councillor Toll. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question?
Madam Mayor. December 19th, page 2. We have halfway down, it says moved by Councillor Trish Toll, seconded by Councillor Philman Susan Valentine, that we transfer $10,000. It was one or the other of us. I really don't remember, and I didn't think to look in my notes to see who it was. But you should correct that.
Any other corrections or comments? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Number 6 is additions to the agenda.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Yes, Madam Mayor. Under closed session, continuing on the personnel theme, I'd like for it to be 18.2, staff procedure and responsibilities.
Anything else? Someone like to make that a motion?
So moved.
You heard the motion from Councillor Sturgeon. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councillor Toll. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary-minded? Motion carried. Item number 7 is the RCMP report.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and councillors. I don't have a whole lot for you tonight, but just a breakdown of our files over the last month. And looking back to January of last year, which is strange to call that 2023, but it is. We had 78 files last January. 9 of those were criminal code investigations with charges laid or recommended. This past January, we had 63 files, and 6 of those were criminal code charge files. Looking at those files in particular, we had one report of a break and enter with failing to comply with conditions, and we're looking at charges against 2 individuals on that matter. We had 1 impaired driver, 1 prohibited driver, 1 assault, 1 obstruction of justice, and 1 other failing to comply with condition file. And breaking down just all the files in total there, we had 2 assault investigations, 5 suspended drivers, and 1 prohibited driver. Just, I guess, look at that now, it could be confusing there. Suspended drivers, when you're suspended under the Motor Vehicle Act of New Brunswick, and so it's a provincial charge and a ticket or a court date for that, but it's a provincial act charge. Prohibited driving is something where somebody's been prohibited under the criminal code from maybe an impaired driving conviction or dangerous operation conviction, and as a result of that conviction, they've been prohibited from driving anywhere in Canada for a certain amount of time. If they get caught, they're charged under the criminal code. So we had 5 suspended drivers, 1 prohibited driver. 2 break and enter reports, 1 already mentioned there with the charges, and the other one was found not to be a criminal offense. We had 2 investigations for failing to comply with conditions, 1 of harassment, 9 of mischief, 15 other Motor Vehicle Act tickets or reports of driving, 1 impaired driver as mentioned, 2 other 7-day suspensions for impairment by cannabis, and 3 uttering threat investigations. That's what we were dealing with in January this year. I don't really have any other comments tonight, but if there's any questions, I'll be glad to take them.
So I understand that there was a failure to appear in court on the part of somebody who was charged on that. Do you know if that's true?
Not specifically. That could fall under the failing to comply with conditions, say in our scoring on our files. It's listed as failed to comply or appear, and so it might be one or the other there. But it's...
And if they do fail to appear when they've been told to, what happens to them?
A warrant of arrest would be issued. There's 2 types of warrants. One is a unendorsed warrant, one is an endorsed warrant. Basically, the judge makes a determination whether or not the police can release them once they're found on some new documents and send them back to court. The other type is the judge wants them back in court. So we arrest them, we have to hold them for a hearing, and they get transported off to St. John where they appear in person and have a bail hearing where they determine whether or not they'll be released at that point. Most times they do get charged for failing to appear, but not always. You're welcome.
Anything else, Councilor Green?
You mentioned cannabis impairment, and since legalization of cannabis, I smell it sometimes when I'm walking by a vehicle, but I wondered if there was an actual test you do to determine level of impairment.
Yeah, it's something that the RCMP is looking at. Some places have got actual roadside instruments where I think it's a saliva test or something like that for different drugs that it'll detect. Here on Grand Manan, I don't even know if New Brunswick as a province has those, but I know we don't have those in Grand Manan, but we rely on sobriety testing where we would do that on the roadside. There's a couple of tests that you run them through and determine whether or not they'd be impaired.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Item number 9 is old business. 9.1 is RSC update. I just had a couple of things that I wanted to highlight that's happened at the Regional Service Commission over the last couple of meetings. One is our meeting 2 weeks ago. We had a presentation on the regional tourism strategy, and the meeting is up on the RSC's YouTube channel if you're really bored some night, but if you want to just watch the highlights, which is the tourism presentation. Association. It was really good. I'm really impressed actually with where we started with it a few months ago and where it ended up with the strategy. They have a slogan for the area, they've got some hashtags, they've got different logos, some have like a lighthouse or a whale's tail. It's I think it's a way to sort of tie the region together because there's so much when you stretch from Macadam down to the islands. So I think it's a really good start for the Regional Tourism Initiative, but I just would encourage you, like I said, if you've got some time to have a look at it. The other thing is there remains a lot of confusion from everybody, or at least around the RSC table, and I think around this table as well, about the responsibilities under economic development, what falls to the municipality, what falls to the region, and what falls to the province. And so we are working on having a regional economic development meeting. It will be open to council and staff. The date tentatively right now is March 14th, so once the details are firmed up, I will circulate that information out to everybody, but I'm really hopeful that there will be some people from here who will be able to attend. It will likely be in St. Andrews, so just stay tuned for the information on that. So those are my two things that I really want to mention. If there's any questions or comments on those. Councillor Sturgeon?
Madam Mayor, when I was president of the Union of Municipalities of New Brunswick, one of the things that we had brought forth to the Premier Higgs at the time was the possibility of having an extra charge for accommodations, and it would go towards promoting tourism. And I remember at the time speaking with him, and he said, "I kind of like to know what the rest of the world is doing." And understandably so. And I remember saying to Mr. Premier, that's certainly understandable, but I can tell you, in our part of the world, everybody is doing it except for us, and they're reaping the benefits from it as well. So I was wondering, was there any talk of such a thing in the tourism meeting that you were talking about, that you attended?
So the tourism levy's been talked about, and that's something that I think around this table we need to have a conversation about at some point over the next little bit. Particularly when you look at the amount that we're contributing towards the tourism strategy for the region, we have a set amount. It's based on some formula based on population and tax base. I think I can't remember if that one's the 50-50 or there's different levels of formula for each one. That is certainly one of the ways we could fund that, because right now we're funding it through our tax base.
Yes.
So over the long term, if that's a strategy we want to look at, that's something we could do, and maybe we want to do something more local as well. So I think that's a conversation to have here. I know they have one in St. Andrews, and I believe Airbnb now has the option where if there is a marketing levy, that can be part of those fees as well. So, anyone else? All right. 9.2 is the North Head Dredge Materials, CAO rating.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I can't believe we're still talking about the North Head Dredge Material, but here we are. So there's been some activity up there again lately, and they are getting ready to move some additional material to the C&D site. As you all know, they were approved to take up to 10,000 cubic meters of material. The first lot that they took up came out to be about 4,500. They done some screening, they took out some larger rock that they could reuse, and took a bunch of piles and made them into one pile. And they reached out, wanted to know if they could remove the remainder of the material. Just making sure, because there's been a lot of wharf talk about the piles and what was where, we wanted to make sure it was still okay. So they submitted more samples and another report, and I submitted that to Department of Environment, even though we didn't have to, but I just wanted to make sure everything was on the up and up, and we did get the okay from Environment to continue up to our maximum of 10,000 cubic meter. So they're looking to start moving that pile, the remainder of that pile sometime, I believe, this week.
Question, Madam Mayor.
Yes, Councillor.
That's when it talks about the Department of Environment, is that federal or provincial?
That would be provincial.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Item number 10 is the 10-minute open session. to item number 11, which is delegations or special speakers. First up, we have Charlotte County Seniors Resource Center, Anna Keach. Come on up, and we're pretty informed, so.
Okay. Well, firstly, thank you for having me tonight, and thank you, Dan, for the kind words. So my name is Emma Keach, and I work full-time for Charlotte County Seniors Resource Center. I do have an assistant, Carol Davidson, who is part-time. We're a strong team of 2, but the hope is to build this program and provide more staffing to serve our clients better. So this program is through Nursing Home Without Walls. It was started with Suzanne Dupree-Blanchard, a researcher at the University de Moncton. She strived to help seniors to stay home longer and minimize the unnecessary emergency department visits. So through helping seniors access appropriate services and information, providing opportunities for socialization, access to education on aging, and responding to the needs of the community, this is what we're working towards. This initiative is in partnership with Passamaquoddy Lodge, the Healthy Seniors Pilot Project, Nursing Home Without Walls, and the Government of New Brunswick. So this actually started with a very successful collaboration with the Westford Nursing Home in Port Elgin, and they've been operating for 3 years and they have 385 clients. So the 4 pillars of our program are: we're non-medical, there's no cost to the seniors to access these services, we'll be offering education sessions and in-person services to access those social development programs, and the goal is to combat the socialization whilst helping seniors just know about the existing resources. So we are serving the whole of Charlotte County and the Fundy Isles. So we'll be visiting Grand Manan once a month with the option to increase those visits. This is a community-driven project. So we're interested in gathering insights into the needs and preferences of seniors who aspire to age in place and within their own homes. So our office is located in St. Andrews at the Wellness Centre, but if you can't come to us, we are more than happy to come to you. It's been one of our biggest wins, is actually going out to the seniors. Today I've been out in the community connecting with some seniors already in their home. So the things we can help with are assisting with social development applications to access health services. So this includes having homemakers come in, Meals on Wheels, foot care. A lot of these programs are subsidized. So another one we've been helping with is the new dental program, the vision program, hearing aids, home adaptation programs, and many others. It's quite overwhelming, as you can imagine. So we're recruiting volunteers for the buddy program. So the idea is we'll be pairing volunteers up with seniors to provide socialization and connection to their community. This can range from a telephone call to a cup of tea to a game of cards. Charlotte County Seniors Resource is there to help foster that connection. And through that, there would be a criminal record check and a social development check. So we're hoping to be a social connector. So there are so many wonderful programs that exist in Charlotte County and Fundy Isles, and we're just working to inform and encourage seniors to know about all the different programs and events. We are dedicated to promoting robust intergenerational ties through various initiatives as well, such as the volunteering and the buddy program, mentoring platforms, skill sharing, and social gatherings. So we will be offering some educational services which will be across Charlotte County and the Fundy Isles, including basic classes on computer and phone usage, guidance on preventing falls, teaching on health and well-being, helping with the facilitation of tax clinics, and we'll be starting that in early spring. So under construction for year 2, which would be October 2024 for us, is we're looking at the transportation piece for seniors, looking at ways to get them where they need to go and where they want to go. So even things like getting them out to get their groceries and medication. And we'd be hoping to hire in more staff to help serve Charlotte County and the Fundy Isles. So we're just asking for people to help spread the word about us, and let seniors know that we're here to help. This is through social development, and there is no cost. And if there's any senior groups out there who would like me to present, I'm more than happy to do so. And that's it in a nutshell. But we've only been going since November 1st, so this program is growing, and as I said, it is community driven. So.
Sounds like a great program.
Madam Mayor, I'm mentioned there is a web page, Facebook page?
Correct, there is.
And there would all the programs and such be on that?
So we're building our webpage, but yes, they certainly, and certainly I can have cards I can leave here if I may.
We will appreciate that.
Yeah.
Anyone else? You've only started in November?
We started November 1st, yes.
It's a
Yeah.
lot from November.
Mm.
So you said that you reached out to some seniors here, and I think you're having an open house. You had one this afternoon. I'm trying to remember what the schedule was.
Yeah, so we had done a mail out, so a lot of people had called through that. And then tomorrow I'm at the Community Life Church between 9 and 2. I do have some appointments booked just to see people. But even things like the low income senior benefit, people have to apply for that. That's not a given. And so we're just helping with things like that to ensure that they're getting.
Excuse me.
Our recreation coordinator, apparently I have questions if no one else does, so sorry. Our recreation coordinator does a seniors program here once a month on Thursdays. It might be, if you are over some time, it might be worth dropping in just to touch base with those ladies.
Yes.
I think it's mostly ladies who come to that. So I think this has a lot of potential. And the other thing I was going to suggest is, I don't know if you've reached out to anybody down at the Coast Health Clinic, but I know they have an optometrist they're trying to line up to come, and a denturist, and potentially an audiologist. And I'm just thinking particularly for Graham and Ann seniors, if there's a way to link the programs with them, it would make a lot of sense travel-wise. So I'm sure you've thought of it, but I just wanted to throw that out there as well.
I'm grateful for any advice or tips.
So that's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank
very
you so much.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
And yes, please leave some contact info.
Yes, thank you.
All right, I'm not getting the stink eye from Councillor Boyd, so I think we were nice enough. So we'll move on to the Graham and Ann Fitness Center presentation, Madison McLaughlin.
Hi everybody, I do apologize, I just got off work like 10 minutes ago, so I'm in scrubs. I'm not one to dress up. I certainly would be wearing something other than scrubs. But my name's Maddie and I have Kim here with me. And we're here on behalf of the 24-member committee to present the idea of a gym expansion. In this presentation I'm going to discuss who uses the gym, the positive impact that it has on our community, the price of memberships, the revenue of the gym, and our plan. So who uses the gym? Anyone 16 plus. There's students to elderly in the fitness center. Tourists, there's an increased number of memberships in the summer with tourists. Also people that are islanders that come for scalloping and fishing season. And there's been a lot of cooks workers in the past. There's currently 118 active members at the facility, and in the last 5 years, the total number of members has doubled. However, the gym space has remained the same. Kim's gonna hand out a picture. I took a picture the other day when I was in the gym. There were 7 people in the gym. I did ask permission, and they were aware that this picture was gonna be presented with council. Just to give you guys a visualization of what it's like to be in the gym with a limited space and a large number of people. Just really is hard to move on to the next exercise when you have so many people in the facility. It's awkward to ask people if you can use something when you think that they might be using it. And I'm at the gym quite often, and I'm only there for about an hour at most, but there's usually 2 to 7 people with me at a time, and a lot of the time there is about five people on average. And during the course of a day, if every member went to the gym spread out evenly, over the 19 hours open, there would be 6 members in the gym at all times. And most people aren't going to the gym at midnight, but I don't think anyway.
Maybe if they just got off a night shift.
Yeah. So the positive impact, so it gives everybody a sense of community and the ability to connect with others through fitness. There's obviously improved physical health benefits, and as a nurse I view it as a preventative care measure for people's health. There's also, exercise is also linked to increased mental health, which has been an ongoing increasing problem. Decreased depression and anxiety, reduced stress and increased sleep, and that would be nice to have. Kim's also gonna hand out a picture. I have a picture of the current prices of memberships right now. And I am gonna recognize at this time that Grand Man's one of the only facilities that I've looked into that offers senior, student, and emergency discount rates, so that's great. The membership fee at the fitness center has increased, however, our services have not. But I do believe people would be willing to pay more for a new space or new equipment. And after discussing this proposal with several people, I found that more people would be inclined to purchase a membership if there was a larger facility. The gym revenue of 2023 was roughly $19,000, and I recently learned that the revenue doesn't go back entirely into the fitness center. The village allocates for one new piece of equipment per year. However, this year it was great because we did get a treadmill, well, on order, a treadmill and a leg extension machine, which is greatly appreciated. Because I think the old leg extension machine was from the old facility, so that's great.
A little bit more resistance.
Yeah. So our plan is to expand the gym outward towards the parking lot. The current square footage of the gym is 900 square feet, and our plan is to double that. I did get a quote from Mike Park from Park Place Carpentry, and he did quote for $175,000 to $200,000, which I did just build a house, so probably the higher end of the budget. And we are aware that this would be a long process if approved. A secondary plan brought to my attention today was to knock out the wall between the janitor's room and the gym. And the janitor's room is approximately 12 by 16, and that would increase our space by about 192 square feet. This would allow for kind of like an expansion in phases. So it's a quick fix for the time being. And since I just heard of this idea, I don't have a quote yet back from Mike, but he did say that he would get back to me. And how the money would be raised, we would kind of divide it evenly among three areas. So one would be fundraising. Emma Russell has graciously agreed to host the famous trivia nights, which brought in between $4,000 and $5,000 each time they were held. Donations and as well as grants, and if this is approved, it might be something Rotary or the village would like to be interested in supporting. Our committees are excited about the potential of this project. Even if it's a 2 to 5 year project, the idea of it excites us. And just reminding everybody that this isn't something that's going to go out of style. The gym is always going to be used. And thank you for your time.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Sturgeon?
More of a comment than anything else. Thank you. Certainly have done your homework, and also as well. Never feel you have to apologize for your parents coming from work. We're all working.
Thanks.
Anyone else?
I'd say good job. It's good to see
Thank
you guys step up and do this. We've discussed this in length, and it's good to see you guys take the initiative, and I'm more than willing 100% to help you guys out.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
I will say, even though Maddie said that there was currently 118 active members, there's actually 300 key fobs out there for, was it this year? We went through and deleted all of the ones that were old. So that may mean just someone hasn't come in the month of February to renew their membership. But so the 118 is being very liberal.
And that's for winter too, like we have a lot that pick up their memberships again in the summer, so. So it is generally on the higher end of that.
So how are we going to move forward and address it? Would we like delegate like a standing committee? Like how can we move this forward?
Like, we've talked about this for a bit. One of the first things we did was reach out to the engineer to make sure that the wall between the closet and the fitness center wasn't load bearing, which the engineers have confirmed that it's not. So at this point, we just need the village, the staff, whoever's appointed, to work with this committee and come up with a price and what it would be to go, let's say, phase 1 into the closet, which will give them somewhere around 21% increase in space. And then I think the committee needs to work with some other gym users to figure out what's the best way to utilize that extra space, whether to separate the weights and the cardio and things like that, so.
So perhaps a motion to have staff work with the committee to look at the options for expansion of the fitness center?
I make that motion.
Heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons, do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Everybody wants.
Everybody's on board.
Seconded by Councilor Valentine, I go you first. Question? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. If you worked a 12-hour shift, you're welcome to stay, but you don't feel you have to.
I have to coach basketball practice, so it started like 20 minutes ago, but thank you guys very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Yes, and Emma, you can leave too, I didn't give you permission.
That's okay.
Everyone can leave if you want. Thank you, guys.
Camera.
All right, item number 13 is a letter from Canada Post. There's one in the package, and then I see there is another one on our desks as well. So, this says, Canada Post is proud to deliver to every Canadian address and serve Canadians through its vast network of post offices. Our goal is to serve the people in your community when they use the post office the most. To do so, we regularly review our services to ensure they align with community use. Our review has determined that we have a very small number of local customers between the hours of 5 p.m. and 5:30 p.m. Monday to Friday at the North Head, New Brunswick Post Office. We are therefore considering shifting our business hours to better match community use on weekdays. Note that we are not proposing to reduce our business hours in any way. We are only considering changing the times when this post office will open and close for business. Depending on community use, this may mean the post office will have an earlier opening, a shorter lunch hour, and closing earlier in the evening. We will be holding discussions with local representatives of our Employees Association, the Canadian Postmasters and Assistants Association, and will communicate with you once these discussions have occurred. Rest assured that these potential changes will take our customers and your constituents' postal needs into consideration. We are committed to providing postal services in communities across the country, and that's from Rod Assant, local area manager in Fredericton. And so we have a letter as well from Marcia Benson, postmaster at North Head. And she says, as postmaster at North Head Post Office, I've requested from Canada Post a change in hours of operation to better accommodate our staffing needs. So far, it has approval in each stage necessary to implement the change. I understand this request is on the agenda for tonight's meeting and thought it might be helpful to explain why the change in hours has been requested. Our current hours are 8:30 to 12 and 1 to 5:30 Monday through Friday. Our local daycare closes at 5 p.m., making it impossible for staff to stay until our 5:30 closing unless arrangements can be made for someone else to pick up their children. Staff from Whitehead occasionally work in our office because the Whitehead ferry departs from Ingleshead at 5 and 7:30 p.m. Staying until 5:30 means having to wait until the late ferry. On occasion, we've had to draw from the mainland to staff the office. It's difficult to catch the 5:30 summer ferry when we don't close until 5:30. In addition to the advantage of closing earlier, changing the 60-minute lunch closure to only 30 minutes would leave a full hour for both staff members to process the incoming mail and parcels that arrive on the first ferry. Currently, the PM's lunch hour is 12 to 1. This would mean getting the mail out more quickly for customers. Changing our hours to 8:15 to 12:30 and 1 to 4:45 would be a huge step forward in solving the challenge to adequately staff the office both now and in the future. We very much appreciate your support to help move this forward. Questions or comments?
Her letter was pretty self-explanatory, really.
I think so, and I had a conversation with her a couple weeks ago. She told me that this was coming and, explained what some of the challenges were. I think she's articulated them well why they're considering it. So, I mean, I don't use that post office. I'm not sure if anybody from that end of the island. You don't have any from that end of the island. I'm just realizing looking around. Councillor Boyd. I'm very excited. Someone from the North Head area.
Well, not really, but close enough. I'm just curious is this more of a telling us than asking us? Because I mean, it's a federal entity, so I guess, are they asking if it's okay to change it, or are they just telling us that they are changing?
I think they're telling us
I think
nicely.
they're telling us,
Yeah.
yeah.
And they'd like for us to say okay and not fight them too much.
So I guess it doesn't really matter what we say, because I guess they're probably gonna do what they want. So I mean, I know there's lots of people that work till 5 o'clock and have busy days and have a hard time getting up there to get parcels and things like that. So I mean, there's two sides to every coin, I guess. Just playing devil's advocate, but if they've already made up their mind, then I guess I'm not sure what us saying we don't want them to do that can do, I guess.
I understand what you're saying, and I can appreciate that, because closing before 5, it does make it challenging for people. And hopefully, like, the 8:15 opening would give some opportunity earlier the next morning. I know in talking to the postmaster up there, they have had days where she was out sick and they literally had to close the post office because they had no one to cover. And they've had to close early some days anyway because they have no one to work that last half hour to 45 minutes. So I think it's more, as you said, it's going to happen. So if there is, I'm not sure how to word this. If we have strong opposition, I think we should articulate that. But if I'm just kind of trying to gauge like how strong is our concern on that.
Madam Mayor, they did articulate in the first letter that they're receiving little traffic. And let's face it, there's seldom a decision that we make as council that makes everybody happy. I mean, there are those that are for it and there are those who are against it, and we seldom hear anything when somebody's for it, but we sure hear it when they're against it. So I guess we just go from there.
Councillor Green and then Councillor Turner.
This, like you say, there's no one at this table who uses that service, and without having some input from the people who are going to be directly affected, it's very hard for us to sit here, in my opinion, and make an informed decision as to whether we should support it or push back a bit on it. So at this point, other than asking for people who are going to be affected and negatively to contact us in some way and let us know. I don't know, it didn't really say here if they've sent a mail out to everybody who gets mail in North Head to let them know that their hours have changed. Did it say that? No. To let them know, because those are the people they should be informing, not the people who get the mail in the brown box on Eagles Head Road. That's my opinion.
Councillor Turner?
I have talked to some people who are affected by this. The fact that they would only be closed for half an hour at noon was an offset somewhat, because a lot of people, that's when they like to do that, go and get rid of their stuff because they know it's going to go on the next boat. So I think having that extra half hour then compensates for that. And I think this is what happened at Grand Harbor, isn't it? They used to be till 5:30, aren't they, till 5 now?
I don't think they're even till 5, it's 4:45, isn't it?
But
I thought they were open till 6 and went back to 5:30, but maybe.
I don't think they're open till 5:30 now.
No, I don't think so either.
I'm one of the many people who apparently do not go for meals between 5 and 5:30,
So, I mean, if there's pushback from the community, that's one thing, but I don't think we're in a position to put any kind of hold on this, but maybe it should be opened up a bit so that people are aware of it.
They close at 5?
That's what Google says.
They close at 5, okay. So maybe for this, if I don't know if we need to formally table it, but we just maybe come back to this next month, see if there has been any pushback, but at this point we don't comment one way or another. Is that fair? Councillor Toll?
Thank you.
Microphone? Thank you. Sorry.
I do have a family member who has to go for parcels up there, who works from 8 till 5. So to take a lunch hour to run up to get a parcel, that means no lunch hour, because from Ingalls Head to there is a good 20 minutes or more.
and then you get your parcel, and then you come back to work. I'm not saying he can't leave early, it is a, family, but I was quite upset too when they did the one in the harbor, but nobody ever said anything. I wonder if there's a way that we can ask if they can let the public know up there, so that maybe they can hear what some other people, I understand that people have to get home to Whitehead or have to leave the mainland, but maybe there's a way that, I don't know. They're gonna do what they're gonna do, I think. But I do think it might be nice, because I was never told they were changing the hours, and it took me the longest, I don't know whether it's age or what, but it took me forever to figure out what their new hours were. It seemed like every time I went there, it was closed. So, yeah, so I just send out that information after they do it for the people, so, anyway, that's all I have to say.
Councillor Layton?
Well, I'm just guessing, but there's probably like 300 people get their mail there. And there's 4 staff, so I just think the 400 people have a lot more, they should have a lot more say and opportunity when they get their mail than the 4 staff that's inconvenienced by staff shortages or whatever. That's kind of the closest problem, I think. And I mean, you got to service your people, and if you're going to take hours away because staffing issues, then you got to fix your staffing issues, not take services away.
Councillor Valentine and Councillor Sturgeon.
I don't think they are taking services away. Isn't the number of hours that they're gonna be open
Yeah.
after the change the same as the current ones? So they're just redistributing access.
That's why I'm saying it's convenient for people that work. I guess that's the issue.
That's the issue, yeah. If you work till 5.
Who goes to the mail at 8:15 in the morning? Like, really? Nobody.
Councillor Sturgeon?
I had the same comments as Councilor Valentine.
Okay, so what do we want to do with this?
Madam Mayor, I don't think we really have to do anything with it per se, we just addressed it, and if the public has any concern about it, you'll let us know, and certainly put it on the agenda in the future.
Councillor Valentine?
If the public knows about it,
Yeah,
maybe
right now
we
they
should
don't.
suggest that the post office put up a sign saying we're considering doing this, and tell the local area manager in Fredericton if they're not happy about it.
Fair enough, is that the wishes of the group? Okay. All right, 14.1, road conditions, school closures. That's me, I forgot that I had this one. So, there was a fair amount of discussion, I'm trying to think how to say this the best way. A fair amount of discussion last week, I think, when Graham and Ann had an unexpectedly heavier snowfall than what was forecast, than what was received on the mainland. And so it brought up that age-old discussion of why the school closure calls are not made with more local input but made more remotely in St. Stephen. So without getting into the nuts and bolts of what happened last week, because I think that was just symptomatic of the underlying problem, which is the process with which school closures are determined, particularly on the islands. And so I think that there was a desire to have a conversation about this and perhaps to have some more input from our local highway supervisor, our local roads crew, the principal, something along those lines. So I don't know if somebody else wants to chime in on this, if that's what the wishes of the group was, to send a letter off on this topic. Councillor Garcia, do you want to talk about last week maybe? Or
We don't need to get into the nuts and bolts, but I think one of the biggest issues was during this last 18 months of discussions and negotiations with DTI about the village taking over the highway maintenance, we the village and DTI completely missed that one. I don't think DTI told education of the change, that the village is now looking after it. So I think when the local highway supervisor started reaching out to the gentleman in St. Stephen that's in charge. I think we may have caught him off guard and he was not really understanding why. But I think our local highway supervisor has had many positive discussions since that day and maybe have some of the nuts and bolts worked out moving forward. Maybe he wants to make some comments.
Well, I guess I don't know how to respond to that really. It's not my job, or it's not the village's job to reach out to the Board of Education district and advise them of the highway conditions. It's the responsibility of the Department of Education to reach out to us. And that's been made very clear to me. So I really can't comment on it much other than that. I mean, it's their responsibility to make an informed decision on the condition of the highways. And I don't know who else you're going to call to find out that if you live in St. Stephen, but they're going to have to figure that out. And I think they have. And I think moving forward, hopefully, we have settled our differences. I'll say that. So hopefully, moving forward, things will be a little more smoother than they were.
At least now they know that municipalities looking after the winter maintenance and contact numbers are there so they can now reach out. But the issue was, is St. Stephen, I think, was getting like 2 centimeters of snow and we had 15. They had no idea.
They make the call on weather alerts, and there was no weather alert for Grandland, so therefore school was a go, and it was the conditions weren't favorable. Anyway, hopefully we'll see the next big storm if things have been remediated. We'll see.
Councillor Turner and Councillor Sturgeon, I'm not sure which one of you wants to go first.
Ladies first.
Does that mean we will have some input in the future, or does it just mean we're not fighting anymore? Because I think that's really the issue, and I think we do need to at least write a letter and say, you know, somebody here has to have some input. Because as far as I'm concerned, last week, when they said that those buses had to go, they were putting children's lives at risk, and I don't think that can happen even one more time. You know, I think it was a really bad situation, so I don't think pointing fingers is the solution. I think there has to be a level of input from here, and, you know, talks maybe as to who they would sort of allow to do that, you know, who they would feel was qualified to do that. Yes, but I think it needs to happen.
Councillor Sturgeon?
Madam Mayor, it wasn't just last week, but this week as well. And what I'm going to say is no criticism on Jordy's job, because I think he's doing excellent. I want to be on the record on that. But this morning, I had to use four-wheel drive to get around. And I mean, once again, it was something that was, I woke up this morning, I was like, wow, where did this come from? Because we were supposed to have a trace, and even on the CTV News tonight, they still called it a trace. You know, that it was like they denied that anything happened here, you know. And I believe that we should be making the Minister of Education and Transportation aware of the situation, and we should be seeking the chance for local input. They can discuss who that's going to be later. But anyway, Madam Mayor, I would like to make a motion that we write a letter to Minister Bill Hogan of Education, and regarding that we are asking for, because of the situations, we want to have some local input, because our weather's usually quite different than what they're getting. So, and I also like to have a carbon copy, of course, to the Honorable Premier Higgs, and also the Minister of Transportation as well. And Andrea Mason, our MLA.
You heard the motion from Councillor Sturgeon. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Layton. Question?
Can it be a very stern letter? Get your anger on it.
just so we're clear, I don't think the municipality wants to put itself in a situation where we're saying whether the buses should go or not, because then we're taking on liability.
I understand that, and that's why it's, you know, it's local input. The nuts and bolts of that can be figured accordingly.
Just an informed decision is all they need to make. An informed decision, they can make their own decision, but it needs to be an informed decision.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, Councillor Boyd?
Yeah, I know, you know, we're kind of beating a dead horse here. It's obviously, we all know that it hardly ever happens that it's fit on the mainland and it's not fit here like it was last week. It's usually the other way around. They close the mainland when it's raining here. And I guess to see Rainer's point, like someone has to make that decision, and I'm quite sure that that's why the province took that decision making away from all of the administrators of all the schools, because they didn't want them to have to make that decision. So at some point, someone has to make the decision. And I don't know if that's not just our highway supervisor, but highway supervisor of the mainland, whatever. I guess I don't know what to say to that, because someone does have to make the decision. I agree with Councillor Turner that it was absolutely dangerous and kids' lives would have been put at risk. And thankfully, some of our school bus drivers said, you know, no, we're not starting the bus, we're not going. So I've had a conversation with our highway supervisor, and I certainly support his judgment, and I would certainly support some sort of motion forward so that we can work with our administration of our school to make an informed decision, as Councillor Layton's already spoke. So someone has to make the decision. I don't know who that person is going to be or people, but the conversation certainly needs to happen. I agree.
Councillor Green?
But everybody should kick this cat at least once. I don't kick cats, but well, I agree with writing a letter saying we need local input. At the end of the day, each driver makes a decision whether it's safe to leave and drive it on the road. Each parent makes a decision whether their child goes out the door and waits for the bus on the corner. So everybody has a role to play in this, is what I'm saying. And this is more likely, if this were instituted, to give us more open days than closed days, because I think Dan just said, and he's true, that we get closed on rain days or days that's really pretty nice here, and we say, what are they closing it for today? So I think we do need local input, but I think we all need to step up a bit.
Anyone else? I'm just looking at their CMP, maybe we should implicate them in this as well.
He's on waving both arms.
He's not. All right, so we ready for the question? All those in favor? Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, 14.2 is Seal Cove Beach, the playground. Councillor Valentine.
It's not so much an update, it's a comment. The beach grass is growing really thickly in the sand underneath all of the equipment. And it looks unpleasant, and I think it can cut. It's sharp enough, it can cut if you run your fingers up the grass. So I think something has to be done about the beach grass. I contacted the man who installed the playground, because I was on the committee to help with the fundraising for it, and asked if he had any ideas. And it turns out that he's never had a playground built on sand before. It is an approved medium, but he's just got no experience. And so I'm just flagging it as something that has to be dealt with. It could probably be taken care of with like gallons and gallons and gallons of cleaning vinegar. But it would be like a swimming pool of cleaning vinegar to take care of it.
Any comments? Councillor Turner, Councillor Green.
I'm just wondering if something like a weed barrier would work on that, no?
It's a rhizomatous grass, which will eat weed barrier just intensely. It'll turn into a solid mat. that type of grass tends to mat, and when it does that, it will form an overlayer and an underlayer to your weed barrier and completely encase it. You'd have to use a backhoe to get it out. It's awful.
I'm wondering if this grass would be considered a natural feature for that, and any intervention with that would have to be done with approvals from Department of Nature, DNR, or whoever. Just a question.
Councillor Toll, Councillor Layton.
That playground was built on the beach, right? So I'm assuming probably there was beach grass already around it. So it was built knowingly that this was here. I'm not saying it doesn't need to be dealt with, but it's probably not something you're gonna get rid of. And like we were saying, it's probably part of the ecosystem down there to keep the sand from leaving in storms. So I just, because I think that was the knowledge that was known. Obviously, if they put it there, it's a beach. That's what you get.
Councillor Layton.
I guess I agree with Councillor Toll. It's a berm, basically, right? And you're not allowed to drive on it, anything, really. But I don't know if that's, we have to discuss it with DNR, I suspect.
We contacted DNR at the time, and they had no trouble with us putting the playground there. There was no conditions or prohibitions, and there wasn't I think we put sand down. I don't remember. Do you, Chris?
That was when we installed that. We cleaned that grass up in the beginning. It's just regrown. So, but you're right. We did check with environment, local government. We checked with fisheries. We checked with DNR. We checked with Habitat, thinking surely someone's going to have an issue putting a playground this close to the beach, and surprisingly, no one did. So, I think we can probably at least try to remediate that a little bit with maybe our infield groomer for our ball fields, because it's we tow it behind the tractor and it's got a cutting wheel on it for decompacting the infield. I'm wondering if that it won't solve the problem, but it may at least kind of cut the grass below the surface and get you through the summer before we grow. I expect it's just going to keep regrowing.
Anyone else? All right. 14.3 is the Seal Cove Bridge lights. Councillor Sturgeon.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I guess this is one of those things you don't really, you think about it, you're concerned about it, and then, but you really wonder how many other people are concerned about it until somebody addresses it with it. And that is, it's quite dark at the Seal Cove Bridge. There used to be lights there, and there's not so much now. And I know myself, especially this time of year where the roads are a little, it's not summertime, and you're kind of wondering if you're going to come around the corner, who's going to be standing in the middle of the road, and I would just like to have some warning other than my headlights, because there are some vehicles that when you turn the steering wheel, the headlights turn with them and you see what's going on, but most of us are not that way. So anyway, I would like for us to have better lighting there at the Seal Cove Bridge, that's all.
Questions or comments?
We actually had to unhook those lights this past summer because pedestrians were getting shocked from the guardrail because there was a ground going to the guardrail. And I sent the electrician down to do some digging to see where the power was coming from, and for some reason they think it's coming from the shed out back of the house that's on the corner. He couldn't find the disconnect, so he just basically dug it up and cut the wire to cut the power to it to prevent pedestrians from getting shocked. The only thing we could do would be to send the electrician back down to come up with a price on how to properly ground and install some type of an entrance there to run those lights on the bridge.
What about solar?
Yeah, that's what I was wondering. Solar.
I would so move that we would explore our options in that regard. well, and so our options could be solar, for example, as Councillor Layton said, or it also could be that electrician, he could say, all right, because, you know, it might be, a lot of times with these, options, like greener options, the capital costs are more than if you go with your traditional route, so I like to explore our options in that regard.
You heard the motion from Councillor Sturgeon, do we have a seconder?
I'll say.
Seconded by Councillor Green. Question? All those in favor?
I've got a question.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand.
I'm just wondering if while we're at it, if we could maybe look at not hideous lights. They used to be like decent looking, they look terrible. And it's kind of a landmark, like in the middle of the village, so just an idea.
Sorry, my inside my head voice is getting better there. Any other questions? All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Green, sorry.
It's not a question, it's a comment on this, the style of lights there. When they were put back in, the idea was the globes that used to be there in years gone by, but because of the reputation for that area of town, we went with the, at that time, there was a lot of Halloween on that bridge down there. Back in the day, it was pretty lively. We went with something that was considered bulletproof, and they've lasted 25 or so years, so I guess they were pretty darn good. But I agree, they're not the prettiest thing for sure, but that was what was happening. Anyway, I'll shut up now.
Still, any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. And now I have to read a letter from the Anglophone South School District, the St. Stephen Education and Sea Inspire Awards. I'm not. Oh, sorry, I saw a street light and I kept moving. CEO Raymond, we have another street light request.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I thought you were going to read the letter.
I'm trying to.
So in your package, we have a letter from Natania O'Neill, Natania Green Spicer, writing for a request for a street light in front of her house at 2134 Route 776 in Deep Cove. She just says, I have no close neighbors on either side of my home, and the neighbors on the opposite side are not directly across from me. Very dark stretch on the main highway with very little traffic after dark. From the front doorstep, which could be less than 50 feet from the road, I cannot see the main road or anything on it after dark. At the time of the year when I go for a walk before light and return for after dark, it can be challenging to even shovel the end of the driveway. Recent allegations of break-ins and thefts certainly play into my concern for needing to be aware of the surrounding area as well. If you have any questions or concerns, please feel free to reach out. Appreciate consideration for my request.
Questions, comments?
I don't understand anything about how streetlights are allocated. Like, do we have a certain number that we give out, or?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, we have hundreds of them. But if it's in your yard, you put the request in NV Power. But if it's kind of in the right of way, which falls under the municipality, I guess, they just put a request in to the village.
Are they expensive?
When you have hundreds of them, they are. But just an additional one, I think the Dustodons are $10, $12 a month, something like that, I believe.
Also, Mr. CAO, the newer versions are a lot more energy efficient than they were. So it's, you know, as far as like running the cost of it.
They are. For some reason, we didn't seem to get a rebate on how much they cost per month.
Councillor Green?
Yeah, I took a drive down that way, and there are 5 poles between lights down there, and she's at about pole 3. So I didn't get out in the dark to see what the coverage there, but I'm sure that it's minimal. That's just below Browns Point Road. So it would sort of do a little bit of both, I think. Anyway, it seemed like a reasonable request to me.
Anyone else? I
So moved, Madam Mayor.
You heard the motion from Councillor Sturgeon, do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Valentine, question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Now we get to the letter that I was really excited to read from Anglophone South. I'm probably not going to read it. It's asking for our funding support for the Inspire Awards. We've done this the last couple of years. It's $200, one for middle school, one for high school, and in the last couple of years, we've done one for two $200 donations. I think I said that correctly. So the question is, do we want to do this again for 2024?
I make a motion that we fund the two high school junior high for the $200 each.
You heard the motion from Councillor Greenwood. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second it.
Second by Councillor Valentine. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Okay, 14.6, meeting update with the Minister of Transportation, Councillor Layton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, fellow councillors. I wrote all this down because there's a lot to go over, I guess, so I'll read. We met with Minister Ames, Deputy Minister, and a full complement of his staff. We went last week, along with our MLA, Andrew and Mason. We discussed many things. Planning for the ferry was the top of the agenda and was discussed at great length. Our discussion led to a commitment from the Minister to conduct an internal needs assessment to determine the design, capacity, and logistics of docking a new ship, which is, it's just a start of the conversation, but it's a commitment and it's a path forward. In the interim, we discussed the 5 being hot throughout her off-season, being attended by a small crew, ensuring the vessel is adequately maintained and readily available to replace the Adventure in the event of mechanical failure. We all know that the Adventure breaks down and it takes like 24 hours to get the 5 up and going, so we'd like to speed that up something. There was no feedback on that yet, but anyway, we'll move forward with the next one, the refit. We discussed the refit for the Adventure, which occurs every 2 years, should be shifted from the fall, which sees our busiest volume of traffic, to a spring refit. We indicated the capacity of the 5 is not sufficient to handle those volumes and needs to be complemented by another vessel. Although the 5 ran around the clock with no serious mechanical issues, the ship is 34 years old, and to expect her not to fail during the next refit, it's pushing the bar, and a second vessel is needed to guarantee regular service schedule. So that's something that we were going to look into. Fares. We discussed fares. The province has scheduled a fare increase effective this April. We indicated to the Minister that we were the only ferry in the provincial fleet that has a toll to access the provincial highway system. It's a significant increase, and we asked the Minister to review the social and economic impact of the fare as well as the proposed increase. And while we were discussing this, most of the people in the room I think were new, like TTI is turns over, but I think everybody in the room was kind of shocked to find out that we were the only people that paid for a ferry. So that might be a little feather in our hat, I don't know, maybe, hopefully. Any questions? Good. Last but not least, the roads. Last year, the village requested the Minister to provide us with an accurate assessment of our current infrastructure. It was falling apart. The Minister came over, we looked it all over, and from that request, DTI commissioned Dillon Consultants to provide an asset management plan. That study is completed. DTI has handed it off to the design branch, and we are currently in the review process. The village will soon be in possession of that document as well. And that's going to tell us exactly what's wrong with our roads, where our failures are, improvements that need to be made. It's an extensive document, and it's going to be interesting to look at it. Our indications were that Ramadan may be included in the Road to Recover, which is an initiative the province is currently formulating. It's a $1 billion project, and it's just a drop in the bucket, this little place on Grand Manan. So hopefully we can move forward, and I won't sit. There possibly was a timeline mentioned, but I wouldn't dare say what that was, but until the minister brings this all together, and I guess it's probably not my place to speculate when that'll be, but I'm very, very confident that we're going to see some significant improvements in our roads very soon. That's it.
Can you say election?
Mayor Bonnie was there. She was there. She shone. She was a rock star.
You're sucking up, and that's making me nervous. Any other questions or comments? I will say, if I just add on to that, I think it was a good meeting. I think the fair discussion got their attention. I'm still not overly optimistic we got their attention enough, but I think we laid out the best argument that we could. They estimated that the fair increase would be about $300,000, which is a fair chunk of change to be paid by this community into the province. We pointed out that the brush cutting exercise that we did last year, the municipality took on, saved the province $200,000. So we're not really asking for handouts, we're trying to make the money back. But it's really, we spend a lot of time on the social and economic impact of that, because that's where I think we're gonna see it hit, is for things like sports teams that are traveling to the island, people that are trying to come here for tourism, those sorts of things. I am really concerned about what another increase so soon will do, particularly given, as we said, no one else pays to access the New Brunswick highway system but Grand Manan. So, questions or comments? Councillor Sturgeon?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I echo your concerns as well. And, quite a discussion that people often bring up. We said, the more that services close and move off the island, then the more that, is put on the ferry. And of course, with that, increases the cost of living for us. And with the increase of the ferry tolls, then of course that's going to increase and we're all dealing with enough for cost of living. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Approval to pay invoices. From the general operating fund, applied pressure for snowplow maintenance, $3,823.51. Troy Life and Fire Safety Limited for the Community Center, $1,514.30. Deborah Stewart for Fire Department Training, $2,607. MG Fisheries for Public Works, $1,541. Beers Neal for budget work, $3,565. And Sullivan Sales and Service for forklift repair, $2,306.85.
I'd make a motion that we pay these invoices of the general operating fund.
You heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Greenlaw. Question? All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Closed session, we have two items, both under personnel. One is committees and the other is staff responsibilities. Looking for a motion?
Make a motion to go into closed session.
Heard the motion from Deputy Mayor Fitzsimmons. Do we have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councillor Toll. All those in favor?
Aye.
Contrary minded? Motion carried. Thank you, guys. I'll call this regular council meeting of Village of Grand Manan back to order. It's about 9:05. We were in closed session for two items under personnel. One was for committees, the other was for staff responsibilities. We had internal discussion, but there was no decision making at this point. So that brings us to our next meeting. I have the regular meeting I asked Esme to put the date as April 8th. We normally have a March meeting, but it falls on March break, and we've tried to avoid that simply because we have all of our staff have kids in school. So I'm going to leave that in the Deputy Mayor's capable hands to schedule the March meeting when it seems like an opportune time. If we move to the week before, it puts us 3 weeks from today, and that doesn't seem like a long enough time period. So we will have a March meeting at a time to be named later. So with that, thank you all, and good night.